At the REM Center in Waterville, a few people gathered to hear some speakers on the subject of solitary confinement in prisons. By many definitions, solitary confinement after a certain amount of time is actually torture. Bobby Dellelo, there's a man who's today 68 years old. He spent 2/3 of his life incarcerated in one prison or another. He spent a lot of time in Walpole Prison. That's the Massachusetts State Prison. While there and afterwards, Bobby got his GED. He got his associate's degree, and he finally got a bachelor's degree in sociology. Bobby spent over 5 years in solitary confinement. Now, the thing about listening to what Bobby has to say is that there's a man who knows firsthand what solitary confinement does to the mind, and he has also studied the human mind through his degree in sociology, and understands just what happens in that process. Here I present you some people talking about solitary confinement.
I mean, the problem is that there's no accountability. There's no consequences for the Department of Corrections not obeying the law. And that's what the problem is. And that's the same thing with this bill that we're pushing for on, with the segregation, limiting the time and whatnot, is if there's nothing in there to cause accountability to the Department of Corrections, to the Commissioner, it's not going to happen.
Right.
He can just totally ignore the law, and there is no consequence for him violating and ignoring law.
Right.
So, passing it isn't the issue.
Yeah.
How you pass it is of significance.
Yeah.
But this is an important law to get on the books. It's actually being quite smart on crime, limiting the torturing of prisoners, and it's tantamount to torturing. In Massachusetts, I've done many, many years in segregation units, and the Supermax unit, I ended up doing 5 years and 1 month in there. And the cell is 12 feet long, 8 feet wide, 10 feet high. That's huge. And it actually works against you because you're small in this big room. And it psychologically works against you. You could do a spinning crescent kick in the cell. It's really that big, right? After 30 days, they give you a radio, the batteries, and the headphone. After 60 days, they give you a 13-inch black and white TV. And when I found this stuff out, I said, this is going to be a piece of cake, right? I walked right through this. I wasn't even in there 3 months. And I had escape cases and other stuff. And a lawyer come up to see me, and I had a list of issues to discuss with this lawyer. When I get out into the room, it's probably as long as this and it's equally wide. One side is all square glass panes, and in the middle is a big desk with a camera pointing at the desk. And the guard, every time he moved outside, I turned and looked at him. When I came back, I lost the content of the conversation. When the lawyer reached for the paper, brought it over, I followed her hand motion. When we came back, I lost the content of the conversation. And I had never experienced anything like that in my life. And I was wondering if I was going crazy. I suspected they must have put some drugs in my food or something. But I did a lot of drugs, and I didn't know any drug that did that to you, you know what I mean? And I couldn't get out of there fast enough. When I got back to the cell, I sat down, I didn't have no more pressure on me, and looked at my list, and I didn't do anything. I mean, I didn't discuss any of this stuff with her, and I was like, what the hell happened to me? All right, I got a bachelor's degree, majored in sociology and minored in psych, and I'm the type of personality that doesn't wash that stuff away. And I figured it out. What happens is verbal skills and body language. You do seamlessly. You don't recognize that it's all happening together, but it's two separate things. And if somehow you separate them, it's total chaos on the brain. Now what was happening was the cell door has a little window like this. So all I get to see is this when I'm talking to somebody. And I can talk to people on the tier. I don't see them. So we're talking, I can see them through conversation. You know, I can pick up the accent in their voice, and you can tell like, oh, he's bullshitting. You know what I mean? Or, you know, you got that down pat. And out in this yard, they got these kennels, and I didn't never notice it before, but everybody talked with their hands beside them, all right? And I wrote an article about it. I wrote a piece in the American Friends Service Committee Criminal Justice Program. I got it out to them. And the director, Jill Brotman, she got it into 3 different local magazines and got it back into the prison, into the guys in DDU. And I went out in the yard, and the black prisoner was almost in tears, right? He said he'd read that. He said, Bobby, I thought I was losing my mind. His wife and kids were there. You got like a glass thing that you sit in, and the kids were bouncing around, all right? And every time he looked at the kid, come back to the wife, he lost the content of the conversation. And he thought he was going totally crazy. And this is what it was. This is what this building does to you.
Because you had a separation, you say, between body language and the verbal activity going on.
Yeah, once they separate in your mind, they become 2 separate issues. They're not working side by side. Talking to you, if I sit here like this and talk to you, there's no issue. But if he moved and I looked at him, by the time I get back to you, it's like an eraser. Erased what was going on in my brain. That's one of the things it does.
Yeah.
The other thing that happens in there, I had to put my TV underneath the table because it started talking to me. I kid you not. They have a ventilating system where you can hear a motor sound, like, and that turns into words. And it's very common to hear a guy say, huh, what? Yeah? You call me? They heard their name being called. I've heard my name being called. And the walls are like a beige off-white kind of color, which really screws your eyes up, all right? And then there's these microaggressions that happen to you in there. They got what they call wickers. They're 2 little doors on the main door. One's up high, the other one's down low. When I come out of the cell, I have to put my hands behind my back. They cuff my hands. Then they open the lower wicker and shackle my feet. Then they open the door, and I got a guard on each arm. All right? So they kind of get you in a helpless kind of position. Every time you leave the cell, they go into the cell and literally destroy it. They turn your bed upside down, undo the sheets. You come back in, you get footprints on your sheets and stuff. And I have a stack of legal papers like this. And they would take a stack, look through it, put it down, take another stack, look through it, put it down. They're mixing my papers up. Same thing as taking a deck of cards and mixing them. Each little stack that they're taking, they're mixing the cards. Now I got a stack of legal papers like this that I have to go through and try to figure out who goes with what. And where was the separation, right? That gets you very angry, right? The trays, the food trays have a cover to them, and they put them in microwaves. And then they take the cover off and they give you the tray. Well, the salt, pepper, and sugar are soaking wet from the steam of the microwave. So you have to take them and put them up on the desk, and the next day you put the wet ones up, you use the dry ones. I leave the cell, when I come back, they take that because it's contraband, all right? And it kind of pisses you off because you know you're causing it to get wet, and the only way I can use it is drying it out, and then you're stealing it. And most of the guards that are inside these units are guards that can't function in general population. Or they're in there for punitive reasons. They screwed up out there, so they're punishing them by putting them in there.
Right.
That's the type of guards you got. Now, there was one real big guard that was a stone coward. I mean, this was a despicable human being. And had the door ever opened with him and me, without cuffs and chains, I would have done everything in my physical capacity to kill this man with my bare hands. The hate and anger was that intense.
Bobby went on with more horror stories about Supermax and solitary confinement. He also spoke about his research on the origins of Supermax prisons. At the end of the Cold War, the military-industrial complex realized that the lucrative contracts were about to end. In order to satisfy the military contractors, the federal government decided to build $70 billion, that's $70 billion with a B, to construct and equip Supermax prisons all across the country, all built by military contractors. Not to worry about finding enough people to fill them up. There were plenty enough mentally ill people around to take up residence. On the screen is a web address that shows a Department of Corrections video clip of torture that actually happened at Maine State Prison. Because of the graphic and cruel nature of this video, I cannot show it on this program. I might have edited out the objectionable material, but if I did, the impact of the video would be lost. Every second of the very short clip is disturbing in nature. I would suggest that you watch it online, however. If you can honestly watch this and still say that everything in the correction system is okay, then we, as a civilized people, are in real trouble. I wish the web address could be shorter. It will be worthwhile of your patience if you seek knowledge. I asked my wife to watch it, and after 10 seconds, she turned away in disgust. She couldn't watch it anymore. She could not understand how some human beings could be so cruel to another human being.